a card that you think is really good in the format at the moment. You know, you want to play something that feels great, and just specifically Sculler, I just think it's just so okay and is never great. I'm gonna put that on top. We can play Visions on turn 2, then have Charm up on turn 3. Yeah, friend, I think that's a good point too. Is that maybe we were running out of action a lot. As good as Skyclave felt, as good as Skyclave felt, maybe you just can't really afford to. We do have another mountain in our deck, but this means we can't cast Charm next turn. Maybe can't cast Cryptic and Force. But maybe, yeah. I mean, that is the version I've been playing more of. I just mostly wanted to see how Skyclave felt. And Skyclave did feel really good, but maybe you just need the Archmage Charm to keep the ball rolling. Did I happen to see your Boyle Kiki? I saw that you... I didn't look too closely at the list, but I did saw that you posted it. It sounds like a cool idea for sure. I'm not sure that it's better than this. I specifically like this no fetch land mana base with the Through the Breach package, because it's not a huge deal, but the fact that Emrakul doesn't have fetch lands to shuffle back in is nice, and I'm just not sure how good the Kiki Jiki Exarch combo is. Yeah, I have 0 islands in the deck, just 2 mountains. I think I'm going to counter draw here. We can just draw an Emrakul, and so if they play a Planeswalker, we just untap and throw an Emrakul at them, or if they play Jace, we have Bolt. Did we check if they were targeting me with Archmage's Charm? No. They're going to plus playing around Bolt. If we draw an Emrakul, I'm going to jam Through the Breach. Did not draw Emrakul. Maybe I was supposed to cast the other op there to see if we drew a second copy of Bolt. Well, a little late to the party, but better late than never, I suppose. So why don't we, in our opponent's upkeep, bounce this Jace and draw a card? Or if they like tap out for Shark Typhoon or something, do it now. That's fine. I don't want my Cryptid to get remanded on my instep. If they remand my Cryptic, I'll remand my own Cryptic here. Which doesn't feel great, but is better than remanding their remand, I think. Alright. Wait. What just happened? Oh, I see. Sorry, yeah. They spell snared my remand. It's fine. How come I'm playing 0 islands over 1? I mean... Boil is the main reason. I understand the upside of playing an island, but I think it's fine to play 1. I have boiled away my own island in the past, though, and it just doesn't feel all that good. What about Blood Moon? I mean, Blood Moon is really terrible in this deck. Or you're saying what about opposing Blood Moons? You mean you can counter it or just cast Through the Breach or Madcap Experiment if one hits the field? There also aren't a ton of Blood Moons in the format at the moment, but I haven't found Blood Moon decks to even be a bad matchup. think I'm just gonna jam here. If we draw land, we can snap through the breach, or if they like remand it, we can do this again. Or if they're holding up Cryptic to tap the Emrakul, we can maybe fight over that on our turn. But it's just not getting too much better for us with this Jace out there, I think. What is the best card to Cabal Therapy, name, and Ant? I mean, your own card to turn on Hellbent for Infernal Tutor. It's going good. It's going well, Wolfgang. How are you doing today? All right, I guess we'll just snap right now and try to bounce the Jace. Would Cabal Therapy be too strong in Modern? Yes, I do think so. I don't think it would be like bananas strong, but I think it would be a little too good. Okay, let's just go to game 2. How has this deck been feeling online? Really good in the past. It's been a little while since I've dusted it off, but I think it's good. So I'm gonna bring in these 5 cards, cut one of the Emrakuls and 4 Lightning Bolts. This is my game plan. Multiple Through the Breaches are good against blue matchups, but you only need 1 Emrakul. But you can like end of turn Through the Breach, untap, play 1, but you only need 1 Emrakul in your hand. So I often like to cut 1 Emrakul in this matchup. Well, I mean, even Cabal Therapy with cards like Young Pyromancer would be really, really good in Modern, I think. And maybe Veil of Summer keeps Cabal Therapy in check or something, but I think it's just a little too efficient at what it does. Like, Cabal Therapy is not only played in combo decks. I think we keep double opt here. I'll also say Cabal Therapy is not a very fun card to play against, and you know, it's not like you have to print it into the format. So usually I think that when a card is not in a format and a card is either going to be not very good or not very fun and really popular and powerful, I usually would prefer for the card to just not be legal. I have a pretty different philosophy for unbanning or printing a card that's not legal in a format into a format than just banning a card, if that makes sense. Because people just have tons of opinions about... I don't play opt in my deck, interesting. Or in this deck when I have played it. So they're not on my stock list, which is good to know. I have 4 ones. I think the only league I've ever played with Cabal Therapist in Modern. That was back in the Companion era, and you could just return Cabal Therapist with Luris, which was pretty cool. Alright, can we find a land? Did not find a land, but that is a good card. But that logic stops them from getting us Armageddon? Yeah, I agree. It's like when you're talking about cards that are really, really powerful, like Cabal Therapy, Armageddon, you know, Ponder, Umazawa's Jitte, Birthing Pod, Punishing Fire. You know, a lot of these cards are like viewed as unfun to play against, and you know, in my card game, I'd prefer things to be fun as opposed to unfun. And so if you just have the option of putting a card into a format or leaving it out of it, I think that fun is a really important aspect to keep in mind, as opposed to just would this card be broken or not. All right, easy scry. If they like make a shark, I think I am gonna boil. If they don't have force, we almost win on the spot. If they do have force, we have our own force. But now it's like they just can't tap out for things on their turn. Yeah, fun is definitely subjective, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to make these decisions about what is or isn't fun, you know, and somebody's got to make the call, if that makes sense. And you know, the general perception of what is fun is you know, maybe even more important than your own personal definition of fun. Well, I guess this worked at least. I wanted to play the Through the Breach over the Boil because it's just a little more mana efficient here. How is this better than any number of Time Raveler? Man, our Boil is so bad now too. I guess this is bad if they drew Force for turn, now that we can't cast the Opts. Okay, just kind of lazy here. I mean, you know, it is technically correct, I think, to not cast the Boil in a spot like this to conceal the information, but our opponent, you know, as soon as I played the mana base, said, look, I know what you're on. We have Tails in to counter 5 mana to Fairy. I'm gonna keep this, put back the Emrakul. Put it also mold to 6. Genius for putting back Emrakul. Yeah, the Emrakul Boil anti-synergy. I'm gonna keep both of these. And I think I'll Tails in their fetch. Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, I think probably not. It's just so bad if they untap and play Fun Raveler. And then we can also maybe Tails in their 5 mana to Fairy, you know. Although now it looks like they're missing land drops. That's usually the only reason you'd opt main phase in a spot like this. It's possible that they have a land, though. They don't have a white source to play Teferi Time Raveler. They put a card on the bottom and they miss. So imagine if we had just Tails into their land. Jeez. They couldn't have cast the Charm. They wouldn't have had any lands on top. What are you going to do? They probably remanded this if they have one. Yeah, just cycle. Try to find a land. I guess I won't cast my Boil right now, because they could have Force of Negation. You guys ever seen a little chick flick called Inception? Just gonna draw a card here. You guys remember when You guys remember when maybe I was supposed to Tails in that. You remember when I said that Esther is sometimes bad at remembering? I asked her to do something. And then she was like, what do you... I am not bad at remembering stuff. Inception was a chick flick, just a joke. Just saying. Maybe she put it on and forgot to get it. But yeah, rest in peace, Coffee. I honestly don't remember the plot of Inception at all. I remember like everybody in my high school loved it, and I pretended to like it too, but it was just kind of okay, I thought. That's my, I guess they're doing this so they don't have to discard a card. That's what I remember about Inception. All right, we can. I don't think I want to jam the. through the breach here, even though we have force. Actually, hold on. No, we do want to jam. It's really hard for them to have 2 counters here. Well, I was thinking I was just gonna bounce the Omen and draw a card, but it's really hard for them to have 2 counter spells. Paprika is great. Yeah, Paprika is the way better version of Inception. Me and Esther love Paprika. Didn't get to resolve a boil this game. Yeah, the Emrakul boil anti-synergy. You blow up all their lands with Emrakul, and then you can't boil them. Maybe Inception's better than I remember, but I guess mostly I was just kind of what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was even saying. I think that I was kind of young. Probably didn't watch it very closely. Just aggressive 7 months in a row. Appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day today. People get defensive when you're right about them, I think, sometimes. Does Esther love that impression? I think she would, yeah. I think she'd laugh if she were here. Me and Esther have a very... Our rapport is definitely, like that, where we tease each other and, I would say there's 2 Esther's face, too. And I will if she's here, but I don't know where she went. But I looked and Athena's on the couch and she may be in her car or something. Or getting some food, but... Instead of me rubbing it in her face, I'm rubbing it in Chat's face now. Castle Lock Twain, huh? Just gonna remand this, I guess. Certainly very boltable. Thanks, Escanta. Yeah, I think I'll bolt it this time. It's possible we're supposed to try to remand into a blue source, but... I mean, if we just don't draw a blue source, we still have remand up for this turn. Do I have any thoughts on how to make play/draw more balanced, or do you think it's good how it is? I feel like play draw is still too big of an impact. I would personally say that maybe it's less of play draw having a big impact, but usually these blue decks that I play, they don't usually feel like they're just so much worse on the draw than they are in the play. But there are a lot of aggro decks that really want to be on the play. Tron really wants to be on the play. It's an interesting question. I've never, I don't know of a way to make the... Where did they cast Cling to Dust end of turn instead of trying to find a land drop on their turn? But I don't know a way to make it better, I guess. I think I want to bolt this because if just 2 more instants or sorceries get into the yard, this is going to be a 4/4 and I can't bolt it then. And so I think being able to bolt this now before it gets to become a 4/4 is more important than getting to remand something this turn. I also what I was gonna say was I really feel like play versus draw matters more in standard than it did in any other format I've ever played. But in standard, just as long as I've played standard, I really feel like play draw has mattered a ton. But it hasn't felt like it has mattered as much to me in other formats. Which is a little weird, I guess. But just standard is always about getting ahead on board and staying ahead on board, while I think the older the format you're playing, the more those formats become about card advantage. Which is interesting. So if they replay Skelemental here, I'm not going to counter it. I'm going to tap it in their beginning of combat step, and what this does is it plays around Unearth. So if they have Unearth and we counter it, they could just Unearth immediately, but if we just tap draw, it's going to get sacked end of turn. Yeah, like in Legacy, I think play draw, it does matter, but it with Force of Negation and Force of Will, I know card advantage is kind of king. And also, like, I often find that in sideboard games, people still choose to be on the play, but sideboard games in Magic the Gathering are slower than Game 1 games, just across the board. So, I do think that it, like, being on the draw is less of a downside in sideboard games. Right, I'm not going, if they just cling, that's fine. Remanding cling isn't very good because it's not flashback. It doesn't get exiled if you remand cling. They're just kind of dead as soon as we draw an Emrakul. We get to play a control game plan until then. This deck feels kind of great. Really, the only time you don't want to play this deck is when you expect there to be a lot of humans. Dredge and Grixis Shadow are also pretty bad matchups. But humans is like particularly unwinnable, I think. Or close to unwinnable. Although one time I did steal an opponent's a human's opponent's Aether Vial and got to Vial and Emrakul with this deck. It was pretty cool. What do I think about Crabvine and Modern at the moment? I think it's a little worse than Dredge. It's like a little faster but less consistent and less resilient. And I don't think the amount of speed it gains is super duper relevant in this format that is very, very focused on grindy matchups at the moment. Like, there just aren't like a ton of other fast combo decks that you need to be racing, I think. You know, I'm not Sodek. I'm not someone I think you should be going to for advice about the best graveyard combo deck to be playing. But those are my thoughts. Is Tier 1 larger in Modern or in Legacy? I personally think that Tier 1 is usually very rarely any larger than 3 decks. But I also have maybe a different tier system than most players do, or most people do. But I think that what Tier 1 is are the decks that people are most trying to beat. They're the most represented decks, the decks that have been around for the while, and they represent a big portion of the field. And then I would view Tier 2 decks as decks that are good because of what the Tier 1 decks are. So if like humans is like the Tier 1 deck, the deck to beat a control deck that beats humans is like a good Tier 2 deck and like a good popular deck in the format because of what the Tier 1 deck is. And then, Tier 3 I would kind of view as decks that are just not really very viable in the meta, but still present somewhat, that people are still playing even if they aren't great. And then there are Tier 4 decks that are just unreasonable choices. And that's kind of a very loose tier system. Tier 1.5 is your pet deck that is Tier 2. But I do think that, very often it is better to be on a Tier 2 deck than a Tier 1 deck, because your Tier 2 deck beats the Tier 1 decks and has less people gunning to beat it. So those are kind of my thoughts on that matter, I suppose. Probably just have a million Kolaghan's commands. I may just not sideboard. Maybe we want some number of Aether Gust, just 3 Gust over Force of Negation. Any advice for tilting list? I seem super chill regardless. I guess I've always been pretty difficult to tilt. I have tilted in my past, but it's a combination of a few different things. If you can get into your head that if you tilt, it is going to be worse for your tournament success. If you are upset, if you're playing mad, if you're tilted, you're going to do worse. And if you can understand that and control your emotions enough to overcome the tilt and understand that it's going to be good for your tournament health, I think that helps. But also just having your nerves absolutely grinded into dust with crushing losses that make your soul die a little bit. I found that to be pretty key too. If you can just lose a really, really important match for a lot of money and one that you were really invested in to a lucky top deck, it's just hard to like get too upset about other things, you know? So by those metrics, Blueback Rogues is tier 1 in Modern. Absolutely. So what's my Modern tier 1 and 2 based on what I said? So I would say tier 1 in Modern right now is Prowess variants, and nobody really knows what the best one of those is, but I think that they are still tier 1 or like the deck to beat. Omnath/Uro piles, and there's a lot of those variants as well. Now, I would probably say that those are the only tier 1 decks, and then like good tier 2 decks probably include things like Death and Taxes, other blue control decks. Just play this and pass. Death and Taxes, other blue control decks. Humans seems like a pretty high tier 2 deck at the moment. Mono Green Tron / Eldrazi Tron / Titan, like big mana strategies that are trying to be maybe geared to beat either Omnath or Prowess, but not both. And then probably like tier 3 is like maybe like Ponza, which people think is maybe good against Omnath, but it's starting to look like they're just not favored. Because like turn 2 Blood Moon usually wins, but like any draw besides that is not good enough a lot of the time. Yes, I think Storm is tier 2 right now. Storm is like pretty good at the moment, I think. And I would usually say tier 2 decks are good decks in the format. They just aren't like the decks that people are gunning to beat. Come on. Unfortunate to miss our land drop after casting Omen and, you know, having a draw step. We found one off the opt at least, but I wanted to gust the Pyro again. Yeah, I'd say Death Shadow is probably tier 2. Maybe tier 3. I would say tier 3 decks are, in my opinion, decks that people are playing but just aren't that good in the format. And so Shadow might meet that criteria for me. That's kind of close. Oh, Grixis Shadow is tier 0. Forgot about that. I'm going to try to hit my land again. And I will keep Through the Breach. Throwing an Emrakul at them is important to do at some point. But the other thing about tier lists is they're very, very subjective. Nobody agrees on them, and they change so quickly that even like debating exactly what a tier is in a format like Modern is usually just not worth very much time, just because of how quickly these things change. And they've already played a land for the turn. I think I'd rather remand this than gust it. What tier is my pet deck that has good matchups against every deck you've mentioned? That would be tier 2. Because if you think that your pet deck or the deck you're playing is good against the tier 1 decks and the tier 2 decks, it's still a tier 2 deck because of the, you know, percentage that it's being played, but it is a very good tier 2 deck to be playing, if that makes sense. The only tier 1 decks are the decks that are represented in like a percentage, like if they're the deck to beat, the deck that the most players are on, the decks that are kind of established and, you know, as the most popular strategies, those are the only tier 1 decks in my opinion. I think we just let Pillage resolve here. If it's Pillage, and then Omen of the Sea looking for Emrakul. I'll gust that. The only critique I have of this tier system is it puts KCI as tier 2. I guess I'm a little confused because KCI isn't a deck, but I think KCI was tier 1, at least at that at the PT in Modern it was definitely tier 1 in the sense that people were just so gunning to beat it. I also think that, you know, while we're talking about this, a sign of an unhealthy format is when there is a tier 1 deck that is super dominant despite having so much hate for it. You know, if a tier 1 deck is just tier 1 for a long time, that is the sign of an unhealthy format, in my opinion. I think, you know, I like when Magic changes a lot and different decks fall in and out of favor rather than the same decks be viable the entire time. Is there ever a tier 0? There's been a tier 0 like 2 or 3 times in Modern that I can remember. And it's usually when the best deck is just is still favored, even when you have built a deck that is completely just trying to beat the deck that tier 0, I believe, is when you have built a deck that is just trying to beat the best deck and still is not favored in the matchup. So examples are like Hogak and Eldrazi with Eye of Ugin. Those are the only 2 times I think we've definitely had a tier 0. You could maybe argue that Oko, Urza, Opal decks with Astrolabe were tier 0, and maybe they were. But I think that's a little less clear than Hogak Summer and Eldrazi Winter. All right, let me sack this Islet to see if we draw Emrakul. Did not. I'm just going to pass it back. I want to Lightning Bolt them and just kill them with Emrakul if I can. So I'm going to try to just like block here. Right. They left in Fatal Push against me, which is not a card that's great in the matchup. I think I can probably still take 5. We'll see. But like, people were main decking for Leyline of the Void in the Hogak, and some decks were main decking for Leyline in Hogak Summer, and it was still the best deck. And you probably were. There were some decks that even felt like you weren't even favored if you had 4 Leyline in the main deck. Temple prefers. If we temple before sacking, then we don't have 5 mana to cast Through the Breach. So I'm not super into that idea. There it is. There it is. We're dead to 2 lightning bolts. Not too much else. Yeah, Rest in Peace was too slow on the draw against Hogak, for sure. Which is also like when you have a super efficient sideboard card like Rest in Peace and it's too slow, that's usually the sign that the graveyard decks have gotten out of control. Sorry if you're in chat, Sodak. But I am of the opinion if Modern is going to be a healthy-ish format. Oh, they can Cling to Dust to gain 3 life. We'll see if they do that. No, they target the Charm. They could have another Cling to Dust in their hand. Yeah, but I am of the opinion if you draw Rest in Peace against the graveyard deck, it is good if you're favored. You know, it's good if that makes you favored. And it's bad if you're unfavored even though you've drawn Rest in Peace. Whoops, forgot to play my land. So I'm gonna bolt them in their upkeep to play around Cling to Dust being in their hand. But it hits us with the GG. We're 2-0. This deck feels great. We have both basic mountains in this hand, but I think we just don't want to mulligan. 3 lands, opt Through the Breach, Emrakul. Oh, man, double mountain's so bad though. And it's also, this hand is also really bad against Thoughtseize. Because they can take this. Okay, I'll mulligan. Okay, I'll keep this, and usually in the blind, when I've London mulliganed, I like to put back Force of Negation. Is it a design mistake that ruins a format like Hogak or more minor? I mean, I don't know. Probably something closer to Hogak. But I hope not. You know, the best thing about Hogak is that Or maybe I should say the best thing about Modern Horizons is that for a while it made Modern really bad, and then I got to be really into Pioneer for a time, which was some of the most fun I've ever had playing Magic, was when Pioneer was good, before Theros came out, before the dark times. Opponent kept a 1 land hand. They kept 7. 1 land on the play with 2 Thought Seizes is interesting. I will remand this. Is Pioneer bad now? I've actually heard some good things about Pioneer lately, to be honest with you. Pioneer, it doesn't look like the format before Theros came out, even with all the Theros cards banned. Not all Theros. Like, they didn't ban Heliod, they banned Ballista, but then they banned Inverter instead of Oracle. But it was a combination of Oracle, Uro, Heliod, and Underworld Breach being printed all at once, and then them just not doing anything about it for like 5 months or something, and then by that time they had printed a lot of other cards that were kind of unfun, like Omnath. But I've heard good things about Pioneer. I know that the people that are currently playing Pioneer like it a lot. Wow, we just have 9 points to burn, and they're at 9. But yeah, but the people that are playing Pioneer like Pioneer right now, from what I understand. I just personally have been really interested in Modern, and it's really hard to be very into 2 formats at the same time in Magic. At least for me personally, I've always found it difficult to stay super up to date on 2 formats at once. And Modern's just been really, really good. And until Modern stops being really, really good, in my opinion, I'll be playing Modern, I think. Maybe make them tap the Peatland. Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that Omnath's not even impressive. It just, the format doesn't look the way it did when I liked it, I guess I should say. Like, I really liked it before Theros came out, and it just hasn't been the same, which is fine, Formats are supposed to change, and that's the beautiful thing about Magic, is there's a bucket of different formats that you can pick and choose from, and everyone enjoys different things about Magic the Gathering, which is really neat. That it's the same game, but there's just a ton of different subcultures, and people enjoy different things about it, and that's just totally fine. I kind of want to double bolt this Shadow right now. I can make it a... nah. Later as Kanta. I think just taxing their life total with these 2 bolts is better. Like, they can't cling to dust because they're, they can't tap these or they die. We're also pretty likely to just throw an Emrakul at them next turn. Because Omen of the Sea has an ability that lets you sack it, and it's better than Deliberate. It's better than Deliberate. I promise. We also scry into a burn spell here. Bottom. Didn't find a land. Uh-oh. So we can bolt and remand our own bolt end of turn if we want. They go into 7. It's not a high life total. What does Fire Design stand for? People keep talking about it, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. What does Fire stand for? It's a Wizard's marketing term, sure, but what does it stand for? I understand the idea behind it, I think. I just don't know what the actual acronym means. I think remaining this is good because they probably just can't play another black source here. There's the land. They need basic swamp to cast that Inquisition again. Fun, inviting, replayable, exciting. Thank you for a real answer. It seems like I'm glad that it seems like most people in chat didn't know what it stood for either. That makes me feel better. I think we all understand like the idea behind it though. Headphones are dead. You guys think we're playing against the real Logic? That'd be so cool. Do we lose? So we lose to Cling to Dust. Do we lose to Cling to Dust? If we bolt, they go to 3, which is exactly bolt. They go to 2. Whatever. They have to have a second Cling to Dust in their hand. That's like the only thing that beats us. But I guess maybe the play is just do nothing. Oh, damn it. Yeah, the play was just do nothing. Oh, sorry. Because we just weren't dead to the attack. It's my bad. I always forget my sideboard plan for this matchup, but I have it written down. So -1 Emrakul. I think this is old without visions, but and the sideboard plan has me bringing in Flusterstorm, but I've cut the Flusterstorms for Tail's End. So I play 2 bolts. Kind of like that. We're dead to the shadow attack. The opponent ends up that turn at 2 life, which is lethal with the shadow. I'm gonna keep this. Put back second opt and play the visions on turn 1. Traverse for a swamp. That was a really cool game. I wonder if the Platinum package is going to be a mystery here or not. Probably not. Seems like people are getting used to it these days. Magmatic Chandler is kind of a surprise. Makes me wish I had more bolts in my deck, I guess. Just counter it. No Veil of Bummer. No Veil of Bummer. Hell yeah. Good draw. I'll keep a land on top, although it's possible that I'll cast Vision instead of drawing that land. Don't really want to steal this until we go below 13 life. I will say that I think that this matchup is favorable, but Grixis Shadow is much worse when they get access to counter spells. Second Shadow is kind of scary. Okay, so I think we counter this, then we can Snap Charm next turn to steal a Shadow and hopefully steal the game. They don't have Cling. Let's play a basic land. And so if they do have Cling, we can cast this looking for Madcap Experiment. And, you know, they could have also drawn Veil of Bummer, I suppose. I think Veil costs 1 mana. I think I remember reading Veil before. I think it costs 1 and not 2. They're going to decay their Shadow, sure. I'll take it. So let's opt and see if we just find a Madcap, I think. In the bottom Emrakul. Play this, just have both of our spells up. I'm not going to attack to grow the Shadow. I'm also not definitely going to block. But I suppose blocking if they don't play a land. Okay, we're dead to Temur Battle Rage, block or not here. But I think I'd like to also not be dead to Bolt, so I'll block. They've got 2 cards in their hand. Notable, Lurrus is in the main deck. It's not a companion. Because of Street Wraith. Kind of weird. Maybe just as a traverse target. I guess I've seen that a few times. So Archmage Charm or Madcap are what we're looking for. Alright, no Kolaghan's Command, please. We could play around it, actually, by stealing the Shadow. Stealing the Shadow. I think I'm just going to cast Madcap. We can Remand a Kolaghan's Command. Then they just recast it on their turn, but... We're not, definitely dead to Command, right? Trophy is gross. We're dead to Teamer Battle Rage. Okay, so... Wait, they're not shocking? I feel like they have a lightning bolt in their hand. It makes a lot of sense for them to have a bolt here. I'm gonna play around it. We have a lot of draws that are like pretty good here. We have like a bunch of looks with opt. But just like with them having like 2 cards in their hand the whole game, it makes sense for them to be reactive spells, and them not shocking also kind of makes me think they have bolts. I guess they could be playing around us having 2 bolts. So like a Snapcaster or another Madcaps puts another Emperion into play. This is a good draw too. Wait, how much does this cost? Oh wow, we're not even close. This card is so bad. So I'm going to steal the Shadow in their upkeep to play around the Bummer. Skyblade didn't go very well. Still digesting a little bit, but just didn't go very well. Guess we're still dead to Bolt, huh? They did draw Veil of Summer. Awesome. Oh, cool. Feels good to have played around it. Feels bad that they are killing the Shadow. Just ramping us towards the Emrakul. So, Platinum Emperion, Madcap Experiment, Snapcaster Mage, or Through the Breach are good draws. Or a cantrip into those. We'll see what it is. Madcap, awesome. Yeah, they've already used 2 answers for this. We'll see how many more they have. I may slide these out for game 3, seeing like double trophy. Opponent goes down to 6, shuffles my graveyard back in. Notably shuffles in the second Platinum Emperion, so if we draw a Madcap, it's live. It's live now. They bobble targeting me, I'm assuming. They target themselves, which is wrong, right? Yeah, just wrong here to bobble themselves. Weird. Weird concession. Let's see if we can cut these. They're playing Channeler, so Bolt isn't that bad. You can play 4 Gust. Oh, whoops. Play like 3 Gust. Kind of like this, just boarding it out for game 3. With Jeskai Wildfire, I also bring in Platinum against Junk. What is Junk? Abzan? Abzan's not a deck. Jund? Not against Jund's Shadow, yes. I mean, not as Jeskai because you have so much removal spells, but as this deck, yes. You're good. You're good. Just trying to figure it out. Not as Jeskai because like your removal game plan is better, but in this deck, yes. Yeah, I'm gonna bottom. Maybe that second trophy was the last Emperion answer. I mean, maybe, but if they have more, they're gonna bring him in for this game. Well, I just bottomed an Aether Gust. I mean, Rin and 6 is not that good against us, really, though. It's like we're just throwing Emrakul at them. Hopefully. Oh, the I see. That's why they conceded. I see. Maybe, yeah. Could be. I feel like you could still draw Luris though. And then enough burn spells. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Took Snapcaster. Not too surprised to see that happen. They can just replay the Shadow. I think I'll just double opt instead of Remand here. Hoping to have them just not have another Thoughtseize, and hoping that we find 2 lands and an Emrakul. Gonna bottom the second Cryptic. Charm is okay. Charm is actually pretty good. Gonna bottom the second Remand. Could bolt that Shadow. Yeah, don't think the bolt's getting too much better here. This should work. It's always so weird to see people hold Street Wraiths for spots like this, but whatever. What are you gonna do? Worked out for them. Do I think this deck could be Jeskai Wildfire? Is that too much? I don't like cards that just say draw a card in this deck. I think that anything that says draw a card besides Remand, because Remand is, you know, a nice piece of interaction and buys you a lot of time. But you really want like those 2 mana cyclers to be like Omen of the Sea and give you a lot of card selection if you can. I mean, there's no reason to accuse them of sniping there because it's like we drew the bolt for turn, you know. And like the play for them would have been to, oh man, such a close game. The play for them would have been to cast like cycle the Street Wraith on their turn. There's nothing about their play that implies they were sniping. About as good as Path, but Fatal Push is better, I think, at the moment. No reason to cycle unless they're looking for something particular. I mean, they had an unused mana on their turn, was what I was thinking. Gargadons? This is the Aspertol deck. They had an unused mana on their turn, so if they had cycled the Street Wraith and hit a Thoughtseize, then they could cast it or another Shadow. Although maybe they're holding it up for Veil of Summer, as we later found out they had access to. But they also saw our hand and saw that there was no bolt, so like it's possible that they wanted to cycle there. When are we getting that blue-black control deck back? I've been thinking about it. Not committing to it, but we'll see. Simian Spirit Guide. I think the Force of Negation has a very high premium on it, so I'm going to not hard cast Force here. I will Lightning Bolt them so they're just dead to an Emrakul attack. That's true, Unexistent. There's not a time to always do X or Y in any deck, and Shadow is definitely included. But the fact that we saw the Veil of Summer, that makes them holding up the Overgrown Tomb like way more reasonable than Cycle the Wraith. They suspend another Visions. I'm not gonna like snap bolt them here. I think I'm just gonna Cryptic their Visions on the way down here and then force Aspertold if that happens. But but as far as the blue-black control deck goes, I think that Shadow of Doubt is pretty good at the moment, and kind of interested in Shadow of Doubting a Wildfired Flagstones. $210 for Jeweled Lotus seems kind of wild to me, but I've also never been an MTG finance guy. I think I'm just going to pitch the Snap, just so mana intensive. That's not what this game is about, I think. Now we can Omen and Cryptic. Overvaluing a literal Black Lotus. I mean, it's not a literal Black Lotus. It's similar for sure, but it's a very different card. Maybe not very different, but it's just not the same. You know, one of the best things about Black Lotus, or would be the best thing, is like in EDH you can Yawgmoth's Will it back and storm off. But I don't think that Jeweled Lotus is a good thing for EDH. I think that EDH's biggest problem is busted fast mana and efficient tutors. So I don't like it being printed, but at the same time, I think I'm not going to play around Electro Dominance. At the same time, Jeweled Lotus is not better, in my opinion, than Mana Crypt or Sol Ring in EDH. Alright, they didn't seem to have an Electro Dominance. These decks don't often play very many counter spells. I'm just going to jam. If they have Electro Dominance and to restore balance, so be it. Yeah, so like Jewel Lotus, a bad thing for EDH, I definitely think, but also just not better than Mana Crypt and Sol Ring in most decks. And for the record, I think none of those kind of cards should be legal in the format. I'm gonna play like 1 Boil, no Bolts, 3 Gust. Tails End stops the spin spells. Seems fine. It only stops them off of Suspend, though. We already have 4 Remand, which is about as good. Off of Jessica, I'm just kind of trying other stuff, trying to play other decks I like before the PTQ. Like, I really like this deck, too. Maybe Gust isn't great, but it stops Electro Dominance and the Rhinos. Seems like enough to me. Yeah, I agree. Like, why are Sol Ring, Mana Crypt, and Mana Vault legal? I mean, I suppose the reason for the Moxen being banned is just 5 color decks get to play 5 Moxen. But that feels like the only reason to me if you're going to have these other really busted pieces of fast mana be legal. I'm planning on... So my plan for this weekend is to not stream tomorrow, but I'll be spending time updating the sideboard guides and... So we don't concede here because we could still draw through the Breach plus Emrakul. But we can't cast any other spells. But yeah, I'm not currently planning on streaming the tournaments. Just gonna work on stuff. All right, just been a while. I want to see 4-color Omnath Modern deck. You got it. I'll play my best version. I think that's the intention there. I can see you kind of soon. I'm gonna bring in that 4th Gust, I think. Oh, we also have a Boil we can cast. Oh, they have a Visions coming off. All right, well, let's go to game 3. 104.3A, am I right? We don't have either half of the combo in hand. I think you can play either half of Pathways with Blood Moon out, but it doesn't matter, of course. Just gonna cut the Boil, I think. They play a lot of non-islands. Dude, is late... What's the ley line that makes everything legendary? Does it make spells on the stack legendary? Is that a combo with Tails End? I don't think so. But that would be cool. Price tags in the format was made were a consideration. It's interesting. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, why are cards like Library of Alexandria, Mishra's Workshop, and Bazaar of Baghdad legal in EDH? All those cards are very good in EDH, but, they don't see a lot of play because they are so expensive. Maybe they weren't so expensive in the format's inception. I don't know. I believe library is legal in EDH. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that it is. I know that Bazaar and Workshop are legal, and they're both very good. Library's banned? Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was legal. All non-land permanents are legendary. Sadly, does not make spells on the stack legal, but that would be really cool. Not that it would be good, but it would be cool. I think I'm going to draw 2. We have Force if they have Electro Dominance here. And just get a 2 for 2. Yeah, Tabernacle is legal too. And Tabernacle is great in EDH. And really, really expensive. I think I'd rather leave up Gust plus Omen than play a tap land. Yeah, Gaia's Cradle too. Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, like, these cards were not as expensive when EDH was incepted, I believe. Dude, we're just just talking about Inception nonstop today. Everybody's favorite chick flick. They exiled a Simian Spirit Guide to do this. I think I'll just Gust. This beats Veil of Summer, which they're kind of repping here. You can also pay for Spell Pierce. We're talking about CEDH or regular EDH. I mean, I think they're just kind of the same thing, to be honest. That's always been my perception. They put the Electro Dominance on top, and now they're casting it, and we'll let it resolve and then force whatever comes off of it, I guess. Where did they suspended Footfalls before doing this, which makes me think that they don't have Veil, but maybe they have Spell Pierce? Oh, I'm definitely going to force this. I think I'm going to pitch the Visions. What is my favorite Star Wars show or movie, and why is it The Mandalorian? Also, season 2 starts. It starts today. Man, Esther's at work today. Hell yeah, that's exciting. They have Dispute. Bummer. I mean, this is really only like, this just makes us discard 2 cards. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, I'll just discard every non-Snapcaster card, I guess. Oop. No. Esther hasn't seen season 1. Esther hasn't seen season 1. She hasn't finished it. She's seen like the first 3 episodes. And so she's at work, so I get to watch season 2 or episode 1 or whatever instead of waiting for her to catch up, which I wasn't planning on doing, I guess, but I'm not going to watch it while she's here. Especially when Esther and I just don't get to see each other all that often. We're both very busy. Our schedules don't line up super duper well. I'm pretty surprised how quickly it came out. I think I remember hearing that they just started production on it like as soon as season 1 ended. Bottom, top, so we can Snap Charm. And we need 5 mana in play at some point anyways. Yeah, Esther's getting promoted every single day. Esther is a manager at a retail place and is also doing grad school full-time. We don't have very many answers to this in the deck. We sided out our bolts. I guess I'll counter it. But I really like the first season of The Mandalorian. There's good quality TV. Am I going to invite Chet to my wedding? Chat to our wedding? Probably not. maybe I'll stream it. I don't know. I might just send like pictures in the Discord or something. Not that it's happening anytime soon. think we're not really thinking about getting married until like she's done with grad school and gets like a real job, and maybe, you know, I'm a little more established as a streamer, or like have a job at Wizards or something. If that dream ever happens. They put Footfalls on the bottom. They've got one card. Land stinks. We'll see if their draws are any better though. You know, the average top deck I do think favors us in these spots. Yeah, like, yeah, how are we supposed to get married if there's a civil war next week? Remand, you got a lot of work to do. Opponent says 17 lands, lol. I get it, but also we have more lands than you. Right? I get that our opponent plays less lands than we do, but it is also like, you know, I think it's always a little... It's hard to feel too sympathetic when you just have more lands in play than your opponent does, you know? I don't think they were supposed to suspend this because they very, like, obviously they don't have a As Foretold or Electro Dominance in their hand, but, you know, this is killing them in 2 turns. I mean, maybe they just have 2 in their hand, I guess. Electro Dominance. I think that just resolves. Targeting me and not Snapcaster. Floating 3 blue mana. Okay, let's see what this is then. Hey, I think they should have targeted the Snap. I think we just force the restore balance. That way they can't draw another way to cast it. Close game. This hand has the combo. I'm gonna keep. How many times have I Emrakul people this league? A bunch. I don't know. What did I do with my life before streaming? I've always been a streamer. Whole life. I was an IT guy at a university. Yeah, I have vialed in an Emrakul with this deck after stealing it with Charm, but never hardcast it. It's just so hard to draw 15 lands in an Emrakul before you draw through the breach. Ooh, Grixis Shadow is a bad matchup. Probably take through the breach. Maybe they take the Charm. Did I like Dark Souls 2? I did like Dark Souls 2. I didn't like it as much as the other Dark Souls games, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of hope they don't make Dark Souls 4. I don't know. Like, the creator doesn't want to make another one, Miyazaki. I feel like Dark Souls 4 would just be a cash grab. I think that they could do a game in the same universe without getting too spoilery. It just call it something else. But it wouldn't make sense for it to be called Dark Souls. I still haven't played. I own Sekiro, and I've owned Sekiro for like ever since it's been out. I just haven't played it. I've played maybe like 3 hours of the game, and then got really busy with my life, and then because I had played 3 hours, having to like start over because I don't remember what's going on felt like a drag, and just haven't gotten back into it. It just hit me that Dark Souls is plural. It is correct. It should be plural. This could just turn into a Dark Souls lore stream. But the furtive pygmy distributed the Dark Soul into many Dark Souls. Esther has a Switch that I bought for her for graduating. But she'd let me play on the Switch, I hope. She just plays Animal Crossing on it, which she loves, although she hasn't been playing a ton lately. Too busy for video games. Alright, turn 2, Gurmag Angler with no Thought Scour is pretty impressive. Yeah, no worries. I hope that the episode is good. I think I'm just going to draw 2 right now. Yikes. That's an interesting idea, Curd Bros. I like it. Wish this was a Death Shadow so I could Snap Charm it. I don't think Scourge is great in Shadow. Maybe you can play like 1 or 2, but Grixis Shadow is pretty bad at dealing damage to you early. Alright, we're dead to TBR. It's not like we're ever beating that card anyways. Oh, sorry, dead to Stubborn Denial. But now we can draw through the Breach and win. Or Modern Staple, Reflecting Pool. This matchup is harder without Flusterstorms that I usually have. Maybe I should be still playing Flusterstorm. Like, it looks like we have to play Force. But usually the sideboard plan is cut through the Breach Emrakul package and save in favor of the Madcap plan, and then play 2 Flusterstorm and 0 Force. But Tails End is just worse, I think. But I say this is too few Emrakuls, too many, or just the right amount. I'm assuming that's in reference to 3 in our hand. I haven't run the numbers, but probably just the right amount. Hand seems fine. We have Visions to dig for Madcap, which I think is our plan A, I guess. So you have 3 routes to victory in this matchup. You have cast a Madcap Experiment and have it win the game. I think that's plan A. Plan B is burn them out with Bolt Snap Bolt. And plan C is steal a Shadow with Archmage's Charm and whack them with it. And those are usually the only ways you can win this matchup. You have to pick one of those plans and figure it out. And you know which one of those plans is correct changes from turn to turn, moment to moment, what your hand looks like, what they have. What if they draw 1 land and never cast any relevant spells? Well, then you have nothing to counter, and you just do nothing. I feel like you need to be real jazzed about Lava Spike to put Scourge into your deck. I agree. Yeah, 4 would have been way too many Emrakuls there. Now that we've drawn Opt, I think I'll just play this tapped. And if they cast a discard spell, am I going to Opt in response? I don't think so. But just think about if their threat here is Scourge and they don't have anything else, you know? They just can't cast their threat. We only have 1 land in the deck that deals any damage to us. Which is probably pretty bad. Like, why would you play a land that deals damage to you? I'm actually going to Opt in response. I will force this Thought Scour, I think. If I draw a Force. It's a fine draw. They can cast either Shadow or Angler now. Looks like it's Angler. Man, turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Angler, 2 games in a row is hard to beat, really. Grixis Death Shadow is a combo deck, changed my mind. If Grixis Shadow is a combo deck, then everything is, but I'm probably not one to talk with my very, very loose definitions of Splinter Twin that I like to preach about. Alright, I guess we're looking for Madcap or Force of Negation to protect a charm on the shadow. Okay, they definitely have a counterspell, so we'll think about that, I suppose. Yeah, they got a counterspell. We can use this Cryptic Command to tax their blue mana if we want to. Is Mayonnaise a combo deck? As a white person and resident Mayonnaise expert, yes it is. Yes it is. We did not win game 1. This is one of the worst matchups. I'm going to counterbounce this. I think we just let this resolve, actually. Does Grixis Dash Shadow play Scourge? I believe it is incorrect to play Scourge, but we saw Scourge game 1, so we know that they are playing it. I don't think Scourge is good in Shadow, though. Or Grixis Shadow, specifically. Would Tasker be played if Fish didn't exist? Yeah, I think so. It would be played. It is a little bit worse. Modern used to be slow enough that the activated ability was relevant, but also the mana cost on Tassiger is a little bit easier to cast for 1 mana on turn 2 with a 1 mana spell up than Angler is. Oh, so they yeah, I think we just need to take 9 here. No. Let's bounce Angler, draw a card. I just want them to counter my Cryptic Command, and then I want to be able to steal this shadow. Well, that resolved. Weird. So I'm gonna target the shadow on my opponent's upkeep. And it's gonna get countered, and then I'm gonna cast Omen in response, looking for Force of Negation. I'm not gonna find one, and then we're gonna go from there. Weird. That wasn't part of the plan. Was finding Force of Negation part of your plan? No, it wasn't. I didn't expect to get this far. Yeah, it's pretty unlucky that we found it. This was not the plan. It's only a 2/2, but it's pretty good tempo swing for us. We know one of their 5 cards is Gurmag Angler. I doubt my opponent left in mini lightning bolts, if any. Yikes. I mean, they can't really attack, necessarily. Gotta draw 2, I guess. Dead to a few things. Maybe this is good. I mean, we're dead to Temur Battle Rage, and that's about it, right? Okay, it seems like they have it if they're just attacking here. Well, they're not just attacking, they're thinking about it. Okay, cool. They don't have one. They also can't dispute this Madcap for 1 mana, but they have Stub, they can get it. Nice. So I'm going to put Remand on top of Boil here, and then pass the turn. And Remand any spell they play, and then Boil. Which demands a counter spell, because they can't counter if they don't. So we're going to Remand, and then they're going to play Thought Scour again off the grave, and then we cast Boil. Oh no, we need to tap red mana? Damn it. Okay, we found it. Found out the line. Easy peasy. And by easy peasy, I mean really hard matchup, and you got to get creative. So now if they attack, I guess I still don't block. Dude, Shadow and Platinum Emperion is such a nombo. This is bad deck building on our part. This is really bad deck building. We can't grow the Shadow. Our life total can't change. Oh, thank goodness our opponent's going to put us to 2 for us. I hate this attack, honestly. I mean, unless they have exactly... If they have Force of Negation, which is not a very common card, the attack is fine. But now they have to chump. And, like, they need, like, Murderous Cut or something here. It's twice an Inquisition has just seen a 4-drop. Now we just Alpha Strike and win. If they don't play another creature here. Yeah. Bad attack. Bad attack. We could side out the Platinum package for game 3. Inquisition through the Breach of Emrakul wins the game every time it resolves, but it is very, very difficult to resolve a 5 mana spell and have a 15 drop in your hand, you know? In this matchup. It's really tough. And Madcap just being 4 mana and only needing 1 card in your hand is a big deal. So they probably have like 3 answers to Madcap in their 75. So like just switching to a worse game plan to blank 3 cards is... I don't like Boil Against Shadow. I don't either, but it just I think is a card we have to play. I think it's like... I don't think we have other cards to play instead. But it is also nice to play Boil Against Shadow to like tap them out of blue spells and like untap and hit them with a big spell. But I agree Boil is not great against them. But I think it's a fine card to play in the specific matchup. Could play the 3rd Force over the 3rd Boil. Yeah, you could. But I guess 3rd Force is kind of nice if our plan is to Madcap. And sometimes you can protect your Madcap with a Force. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll do this. It's not like Through the Breach Emrakul is our only game plan or Madcap Experiment is our only game plan. Because we have Bolt, Snap Bolt, and Archmage Charm of Shadow as other ways we can win. But the Madcap plan is definitely worse in this game. His hand's fine. We'll see if they have Discard Spell into turn 2 Angler 3 games in a row. It'd be so brutal. In a bottom basic mountain. For your record, I think Madcap and Emperion is a really good package to have access to if you're brewing in Modern. Basic Swamp means no turn 2 Angler. Close though. If it was Tasigur, they could have cast it here. Tasigur confirmed better than Gurmag Angler? Question mark, question mark, question mark. They took the Bolt, which makes some sense. No Angler is so good for us. Goodness gracious. They were started to cast a spell then stopped, which makes me think that they have a Scourge, which is maybe like a prime scenario of like, you know, a spot where Scourge just looks so bad, you know? Yeah, the Vision is really, really good in this deck. I think you only want to play 2, but I've been really, really happy with it. Zendikar was like giving this card and this card were both really nice pickups for the deck. But yeah, I think Scourge is not good in Grixis. I think that I just am fine trading Vision for a Stub here because Stub is the best card in the matchup, and if we can just get them to burn through their stubs, we can resolve our like clunky spells a little bit better. Have I played any Black-Red Shadow? I haven't. I've watched like Doomwake play a lot of it. And I've played against it a bunch, but I haven't actually picked up the deck myself. I used to like make it a point to... Interesting. I'm just going to jam. I used to make it a point to play every single deck in Modern and understand it before I was a streamer guy, but it's just tough to do that these days. Wow, they got us. They mill over Watery Grave and Blood... I guess the Watery Grave is more relevant, I suppose. Pass. If we had just ripped a... Oh, sorry, I guess we couldn't have ripped a land. Can anyone explain how Scourge of the Skyclaves is good in Modern? It's real big if you're playing it with red cards. You know, red aggressive cards. It gets real big, real fast. Makes your opponent real dead. I hope that was a good explanation. But you need to be playing cards that reduce your opponent's life total, and then your lands can reduce your life total, because fetch lands are the best enablers ever printed. I think I like remanding this. It's kind of like Time Walk, right? Fetch lands are the best enabler ever printed. We've already used 2 stubs. They do get access to Mystical Dispute post-board. Play and understand every deck in Modern. Interesting way to say you're a millionaire. I use a rental service, and I would not be able to stream or even play Modern without one. But I just rent every deck I play, and it's really easy. I recommend doing that instead of doing anything else. Grixis Shadow plays Dispute now. Yeah, it's pretty common. I usually see them casted against me. I know that people kind of act like Grixis Shadow has like this immovable 75, but I feel like that shouldn't be how people build it. I think I'm going to draw 2. No, I'll remand this. This is a pretty remandable spell. But people for a while, everyone was like, I can't believe I got mana leaked by Death Shadow. Death Shadow's playing mana leak. This is crazy. They are only supposed to play Stubborn Denial. But I kind of feel like mana leak has always been like a reasonable card for them to play. They just haven't. Okay. Looks like this isn't resolving. We have 6 points of burn. They're at 10. I guess technically 9 if we return Snapcaster to our hand with Cryptic, but that's kind of slow. We're also only 2 mana away from hardcasting this Platinum Emperion. Oh, they went to 8. They've got 5 cards in their hand. We've got 5 cards. They have 5 mana in play. We have 5 mana in play. Or 6 mana in play. We're not that far ahead. We might not even be ahead at all. I think that we are, but maybe I'm just wrong. I bought him that canal, I promise. I only played 2 in the deck too. So I think I'm going to try to bounce this. Maybe not. It's just like they almost definitely have a Scourge, or at least maybe I should say we have previously read them as having a Scourge. But now I'm going to snap Target Charm. Then just let this resolve. They probably take Opt, but then the Bolt is pretty scary for them. You know, I spend $40 a month on my rental service. I'm not sponsored by Mana Traders. I have a high enough limit where I can rent any deck in Modern, but that's only because I've had it for 2 years, and the rewards go up and up. Um, so just take that as it will. But it has been very much worth my value, and I recommend using the service. And like, I would not have been able to stream without it, and I would recommend looking into it. All right, I'm gonna draw two. They only have two cards in their hand, and I guess one of them is not a Scourge like I thought it might be. Maybe it's better to try to kill the Shadow with a Charm. I'm not sure. I guess they're just actually dead to Bolt Snap Bolt. And we have Cryptic up for that. Yeah, okay. Assuming this connects. And we're at 15, so the only way we die to the Shadow is if they have like Counterspell, and then draw a Team or Battle Rage or something like that. I think I'd rather bounce Omen than draw a card. I'm going to counter this. Then their last card has to be... It can't even be... I guess they have a basic island in their deck, actually. Never mind. It can't be a... Can't be a stub. But I don't think that it is. They've already cast two. At the very least, it just is correct to go for it here. Make them have a stub, exactly. Even Cling to Dust doesn't do it because they can't fetch and shock. Cool. It's been 4.